Welcome back to the dopest show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer, and this is Sasha, who is hiding right now. I spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but I've been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the dumb stuff I did to get put in prison. Also got a lot of stories about the crazy stuff that happened when I was actually in prison, and God forbid you end up in prison. I want to make some of the same mistakes I made. So, some people show up to prison, and you can just see, like, they're a force. You know, I don't believe in all that hippy-dippy stuff, but, you know, people talk about, like, an aura. You know, it's kind of like that type of stuff. You know, like somebody got an aura to them, okay? This dude, Hawk, was like that, okay? It matters in the circles and stuff you run in and stuff, too. But, like, some people are unassuming, but absolute, you know, masterminds. Like Steve Hood, who was a DMI Brains, who created the biggest store in the country. Everybody, it was the smallest gang that made the most money. He was unassuming. White dude, lanky, fit, but he wasn't, you know, bulked up or nothing. Looked like a college kid. Spoke like a college kid. He didn't seem like a street person. Absolute criminal genius. You wouldn't assume him. Hawk, you'd look at him and you'd be like, dude, what the? Okay, so with body weight stuff, you can get incredibly fit. It's a lot better for fighting. I learned that once I got out and I started training and get my butt whooped. I thought the powerlifting would be something to carry me through, and it does help, but the fitness of the body weight stuff makes people tanks for fighting. That's why a lot of gangs require that everybody in the crew, regardless, you be fat boy, you're required to be out there doing burpees, because if it's time to go to war, you know, you got to have the stamina endurance so you're not giving out. Okay, and you see some big boys getting some burpees now. You see some big guys that had some cardio. Hawk, I have a story I've told about him before. He was like the number one white dude at burpees, and he went against the number one Mexican who was a paisa. They had a burpee war. You go, I go. You go, I go. Talking crap to each other. It started. It went for like 3.5, 4 hours. Nobody won. The burpee war ended because they made everybody come back inside. They did burpees until they weren't allowed to be outside anymore. That's how fit this dude was. And you get a certain amount of, you know, muscle pretty quickly doing body weight stuff you haven't worked out before. But then you hit a plateau and it's a lot slower. But continuing that for decades, it gradually builds up. And the guys who built all that off of body weight stuff are usually forces to be reckoned with, which is him. And I'm going to talk about one of the most incredible feats of strength I've ever heard done by him in an act of rage and anger. But on top of that, he was a good dude. He was a good dude. Like, he had a little workout crew of the white dudes out there. You know, a lot of the good friends of mine. I talked about Wood, that crazy guy, the guy who threw his crutches down. He had a boot on his foot to hurt foot. Threw his crutches down and took off on somebody, started a fight, broke this. he was a part of his workout crew. I worked out with them a little bit too. I mainly did burpees with King. You know, that was my main thing whenever I was at the medium. At the weights, it was all, I mean, at the low, it was, getting dyslexic moment. At the low, it was mostly weights I did, but this is the medium we're talking about. So, people get sent to Petersburg for all kinds of reasons. A lot of the time, it's because they're local. Hawk was from North Carolina, okay? So, that's common. Okay, in the federal system, they can send you to any prison for punishment or for protection. Now, they don't have S&Y or protection yards. They have mixed and matched. So a lot of people at Petersburg were there for RDAP, a tremendous amount. You know, the DMI enforcer, who was active and had been in all kinds of serious prisons, ended up there because he was doing the RDAP drug program. So, you know, you have a weird mix and match of people, and you don't know why everybody's gotten there. And I later learned basically what had happened was Hawk had got sent somewhere for punishment, and then it's most likely he got sent somewhere for protection. Not by any fault of his own, like not by any hinky stuff or stuff that's against, like, you know, prison honor or stuff like that. Basically, he's a wild dude. He's doing a long time. Like, I believe at that time he had like 15 years left, which, you know, thinking about it now, means he's got like another 8 years, I believe. Unless he got more time, which is possible too. It sounds like for punishment, he got sent from the East Coast all the way out to the West Coast. I've got a pretty good memory for stuff. Got a really good memory for a lot of things. I'm almost certain, not 100%, that he got sent to Victorville, California, which is a serious place. Okay, West Coast politics or something else. You know, prison to prison stuff's different. Okay, but the West Coast and Texas, that's two places where racial and gang politics are something else. Now, from what I understood, now Hawk had a whole bunch of stuff. He looked like, you'd guess he's like an Aryan Brotherhood dude, but what I understood from what I heard, and stories get passed around, because somebody from every prison that you've been in is going to end up in the prison you were in, and if there was a story, and everybody's gossiping, it's Mean Girls for men, only the men are, it's Mean Girls for giant tatted men that might stab you in the face. Okay, it's a gossip. You don't have anything better to do, so a lot of time you're either talking or working out or fixing something to eat. And then you got other guys with their other habits, gambling, get messed up, stuff like that. But a lot of people work out. That's their place to where that's their freedom. That's how they free themselves. Kind of like Cutter cuts himself. Some people just work out like a nut, and it makes them feel better. That's what I do, still do. It's how I handle anxiety attacks. But anyway, Hawk, give you a breakdown on me. He's about 5'7", 185 pounds. Probably, I want to say he was in his 40s. Okay, this dude, like, what I look like whenever I flex, in that stuff, on that one workout, in the 4th day workout, I flex at the end. You see relaxed and flex. What I look like whenever I'm flex, that's what he looks like naturally. And whenever he flex, he looks like veins and fibers are popping out of his skin. Like, this dude was incredibly fit. Like I said, he got in a burpee war that only got ended because they ran out of time. A 3-hour burpee war with the best burpee guy of the Pisces. Now, one of his hustles, something he had, they have with people like him. Okay, he's a force. He's somebody who they watch. They have like a record that's got all the stuff about you that the counselors and everything know. When he shows up there, they know about him. Okay, and it sounds like in Victorville, he might have beat the piss out of some Aryan Brotherhood guys, from what I understand, one or two, something like that. It sounded like it was a couple, and he beat both of them. And it sounded like he had a mark on his name, like, wherever he goes at, you get him, But a lot of times, so they send him all the way back to the East Coast. So he got sent to the West Coast for punishment because he's acting up on the East Coast, and he got sent to the East Coast at Petersburg, which, about 5-10% are gang dropouts, for protection, because it sounded like they had a green light on them, which means you see him, you get him. Okay, so that's what it sounded like. But you don't, it's kind of rumors and stuff, but like where it happened, a whole world away from Virginia to California, might as well be a different planet in the prison system. You only heard whispers of it, but he got there, immediately had a workout crew, like started round up a bunch of young white guys, and they were working out with him. He was a good leader. He had a lot of guys working out and getting right. Tattoos, finger to face, giant teardrop on his face, just country boy from North Carolina. Okay, fitness, incredible, like for real body weight stuff. It's one of the most impressive people I've ever seen. Like, just some of the people in prison, you'd be surprised what they're capable of. They come in there, complete junked out on drugs and stuff like that, which sounded like was the case with him, and then just put all their time into it. Now, he also was an addict, and he did have mental issues. Okay, you can tell he's a little bit wild, a little bit crazy. Okay, and he was a good guy, best person that you did not have to worry about him snapping off on you for some stupid reason. If he was your friend, he was your friend, and I can say that about this guy. Now, I've had friends in every group, so it's nothing against any group. I say they're Aryan Brotherhood. I did burpees with the head guy of that group, the Aryan Brotherhood King, and at Petersburg, But, just telling the story as it is. So, he, having these issues, he had been on the number one drug that was traded among inmates, which was time-release Wellbutrin. There are a lot of people in there that abuse that. Only a few people got it. Only about 3 or 4 people got that specific pill. Now, what made that pill unique, among other things, being powerful, people did it, and it's basically like a speed for them. They do that, and it's like speed. So, it's one of the only pills they can't crush. They crush everybody's pills, so then you can't sneak them back to the unit. People still take the crushed pills that are in water, and they spit it in a bottle and pass it off and sell it to people. It's disgusting. Some people dry it back out and sell it. But the time-release Wellbutrin, they can't crush it. It's time-release. You can't crush it. So they have to give it to him whole. He wants to get back on it. He wants to get back on it to use it because he's an addict. And I'm an addict. I'm not talking bad about the man. I'm talking objectively and literally. I speak very highly of the guy, but he's an addict. I mean, it is what it is. He wants to use them, but he also wants to sell them. They're a high dollar commodity. They sell for anywhere from $4 to $8 a piece. Okay, and they give you 3. If you're on time release, you're on 3 a day. They give you 3 every morning. There's only about 3 people that get them. He was the 4th. He had to put in paperwork, complain. They didn't want to give it to him. Why didn't they want to give it to him? Because at the last prisons that he had been at, he would give them to people, let the people run up a debt with him, and then he'd be like, listen, you're going to give me my money, you're going to start giving me something. You're going to have to go borrow it, you're going to have to call a relative, you're going to do something, give me trays, I'll sell them. And, people checked in at a fear of what might happen to them because they didn't have the money to pay them. And addicts being addicts, people will get stuff that they can't pay back for instant gratification, for that instant feeling of an escape. Okay? So it was in his paperwork, in his jacket, in his file that he was using that medication to make money, and people were getting checked in over it. So, of course, they don't want that to happen again. They don't want to have people check in there. So they tell me he can't have it. He keeps throwing paperwork. He does legitimately have some issues. So ultimately they come up with a deal that, yeah, we'll give it to you, but here's how it's going to work. You're going to be, they do pill line twice a day, morning and night. They used to do it at lunch. They cut that out. So they're going to give him medication in the morning and at the night. One of those times, you stand in a long pill line. One of those times, if you tell them you want it so bad, you're going to be the last person in pill line. Regardless of what order you get there, you're going to be the last person to take your medicine. Why? Instead of taking it through the window, like normal people, where they cheek it and everything else, the PA is going to come around. You're going to come inside medical. They're going to hand it to you, and you're going to take it in front of them. Then you're going to open your mouth and do all that to show them that you didn't cheek it. The second time that you're in pill line, you're going to be the first person. So one time he's the first person. He gets to bypass the line, regardless of how long he is waiting. The other time, didn't matter how long you stand there, he's going to be the last time. So that's fair, One time he's first, one time he's the very last. Now, they made sure he swallowed it, but he had a method of burping it back up. So he'd swallow it, but you'd see him walking back from that pill line, and you'd hear him, and he'd sound like he was choking or something. He'd go, and he'd burp it back up. Yeah. So he did that, and that was one of his ways of doing it. People are creative. People can do some wild stuff when it comes to addiction, money, prison in general. But with addiction, addicts find creative ways to make stuff happen. And you hear, and he'd burp them back up. Sometimes he'd swallow them, but, a lot of times he'd get them back up and he'd sell them. And that created a number of issues. Now, this prison, Petersburg, unusual place. Like I said, 150 people are there because of RDAP. They get transferred there from other prisons that can be serious prisons. A lot of people getting up there from serious prisons because of RDAP, to take the drug program, which takes a year off your sentence. There's a religious program that gives you 9 months halfway house that lets you 9 months out early. Then there's a couple vocational things, not anything special. It's behind. You hear welding at a lot of prisons. They didn't have that. But anyway, yeah, so he's at Petersburg, and he's fed up with it, sick of it. He doesn't like it. He wants to go somewhere else, okay? So I can't remember what it was. He ends up in the SHU, which the SHU's Secure Housing Unit, solitary confinement. And he is telling them, y'all got to transfer me somewhere else. Now, something they do at Petersburg is they didn't like doing that. It's an unusual place, right? Because it's 40% chomo. So, but something unusual that Sereno shot caller told me is he told me it was the dangerous prison he'd been in. And I was like, how is this the dangerous prison you've been in? It's 40% chomos, man. He said it's the most dangerous prison because you have people here that are serious people, but because of all the freaks and weirdos, you let your guard down. He said when you're at a serious medium, at a USP, your guard's up. You're ready for anything at any time. But you see these lanes running around just doing what they're doing, you let your guard down. So that's the interesting thing about it. But because there's so many chomos and gang dropouts, and it sounds like he was sent out there to get away from the West Coast where he was a wanted man, and they're like, dude, you're safe here. You can stay in the hole. We're not shipping you. You're staying here. And they do that to a lot of people. They do chomos, other people run up debts and think they're going to get sent to another prison. They'd end up just staying in the hole for 2 or 3 months, then getting let back out and still having to face the issues of their debts and stuff at Petersburg. It was something that typically happened. He didn't want to be there anymore. He wasn't scared of anybody. Dang sure wasn't scared of anybody. But he did not want to be there anymore. He was tired of it. He was sick of it. Now, the secure housing unit, solitary, is attached to the yard. You could literally walk up to the wall of it. Now, you couldn't walk up to any wall where somebody had a room. See, on the side of it, there are 3 walls, and it's got a fence up top, and it's got 3 cages. They let people out for their hour of recreation a day if you so choose to do it. They handcuff you. They let you in a little 15 by 20 foot cage. You just walk around an hour. Sometimes they put a couple people in each of these cages, and people would holler because, you know, it's a wall, but there's a fence over top. So whenever he's out there, they'd holler and they'd talk back and forth to him, and he's saying, I got to get out of here. I'm tired of this place. I'm getting out of here. And, you know, he went in that cage one day, and they handcuff it. They won't open the cage until everybody's handcuffed. It sounded like he bucked on them. He said, "I'm not doing it. Y'all gonna send me somewhere else, or like, come cuff up." And they ran up in there, and he went to, you know, fighting, and it was a whole war. They had to take him, put him down, and everything else, like a cell extraction, like you see anything else. Okay, so it sounded like that first time. That's what went down. They have to give you 1 hour of recreation a day, from my understanding. I think that's pretty much like a rule, like a law or something, just for mental health and stuff. Although it's not rec, you're in a cage as walls. I mean, there's a fence you can barely see through up top, you know, see this. But somehow they consider that, you know, something that's supposed to keep you sane. Go figure. I didn't go to it. I thought, why? Why go there and walk around in a cage for an hour? And plus, anytime you went to do the rec when you were in solitary, guess what they did? When you was at rec, they'd tear through your cell going through anything you had. And I had a radio, and you weren't supposed to have radio on the punishment block, and I knew they'd take it. So I just didn't go. I didn't go to the outdoor rec when I was in the hole, because I didn't want that. Radio kept me sane. Anyway, he's in his room. So they take him back out to rec, and he lays on the ground. They tell him, cuff up, and they keep telling him cuff up, and he just ignores them, just lays flat on the ground, just lays on the ground. And I heard about people that laugh and watching him because he's just being so petty and childish. But he's going to make them recognize, you're getting me out of here. I want to make your lives difficult. And he made their lives very difficult. Oh Lord, he made their lives difficult. He laid there. So then when he's refusing to leave, he's refusing to cuff up, they have to get the little SWAT team of people that are going to come in and take him out of there. So that takes like 30 minutes to an hour. They have to call people. They have to get the special people in there that are certified or whatever to run in and extract somebody with their shields and their sticks and their helmets and all that. And he'd just lay there on the ground. He'd wait till every single one of them was wearing the turtle suits, you know, looking like a bunch of Ninja Turtles ready to extract him out of there. And then he'd stand up and he'd cuff up and they'd take him back to the cell. He'd do this every day. They have to get this whole SWAT team of people to come extract him every day, and he'd just lay on the ground, just lay on the ground, not saying anything. Then they'd be like, last chance, and then he'd cuff up, he'd go back to the cell. But it cost them a ton of time, a ton of frustration. They had to do it. Then he started popping the sprinkler. Every cell in the hole has a sprinkler that's up top. Usually, if you stand on the toilet sink combo, you can hit the sprinkler. He'd take a towel, and see, you're in a cell. He'd take the towel and he'd put it under the door. There's about this much space under the door. People pass kites, which is a string with whatever to pass stuff cell to cell. And he took the towel and he stuffed it completely, popped the sprinkler. Now you think you pop a sprinkler, it's just going to be water, right? A lot of these sprinklers ain't been popped in a decade or two. So the water that's coming out of them is nasty. It's got like this blackish color to it. It's like water that's been stuck in that pipe for a couple decades. So he pops that sprinkler, and he lets that water get up to about 2-3 foot high in his cell. Then he pulls the towel out, whoosh, it floods the whole tier. And they got to clean that up and do everything with that. It's hard to run. If you're trying to run in a cell on somebody, COs and stuff, and there's water, you're going to slip. You're going to bust your butt. You're going to try to run on water. You're going to try to run on water. Old water that's all oily and grease being stuck in these pipes for so many years. And he did that over and over again. Then they got to take him at the cell, everything else. He popped that sprinkler a number of times. But the most incredible feat of strength that I've never heard of anybody coming close to doing this. This dude, like I said, He's about 5'7", 185 pounds. Just ripped. Every part of him is fit. Like he's like, you put him in CrossFit or something, man, he'd probably beat people who've been doing that for a decade. This dude is like that. He gets a hold of the toilet sink combo. See, every two cells share a vent. So you can talk to the person in the cell next to you. And that vent also goes downstairs, by the way. But you also share a plumbing system every two cells. So there's a little door in between every two cells in solitary that they open up that the plumbers can work on. That's how they work on, the plumbing. If something goes wrong with it. He starts pulling at this toilet sink combo that is bolted to the wall. He rips it off the frickin' wall. They said he got in the middle because now that he's ripped it off the wall, he can get in the middle where the plumbing and stuff is, and he's trying to get out of that door so then he could run down he couldn't get out of the door, but he ripped the toilet and sink off the wall. You heard everybody talking about that. Inmates talking about it, but you heard every CO. They're like, that dude ripped it off the wall. The COs were getting scared of this dude, man, and he caused them so much problems that he made them ship him. I don't know where he's at. I don't know his legal name, so I can't look. I would look him up. A lot of these people, when I tell these stories, I get curious and I look people up, see where they're at, how much time they got, different stuff, everything else, just out of curiosity. It's like I was living in a real life movie come to life. And I can actually look this type of stuff up, so it's something that I find incredibly interesting. So I look stuff up like that, but I can't remember his legal name. It would be interesting to see everything, but he had some serious crime. It sounded like, there's some violent stuff involved, drugs, everything else. So it's but he's one of those people, he got tired, he wanted to get out of there. I've got a lot of stories about him, but checking people in over this time release Wellbutrin again. I've got stories working out about him. Whenever I come up with these stories, I write down a list of pretty much everybody that I was around. I remember most names or nicknames, and for each person that I write down, I have no less than 5 stories about. So over the years, I've known a couple thousand people. I know 5 stories for each person that I came across. There were at least 5 anybody that was in a unit, in the same unit as I was, I know 5 stories for each person. It's wild, but instead of thinking about what happened during this time period, what happened during that time period, I make a list of everybody who I ever met, was friends with, knew, heard about the awful things they did, heard about the stories that got circulated around, and I write down every story I knew about them. So that's my little process to how I come about this. There's so many stories I actually haven't told because if I can't come up with a decent thumbnail that'll make people click, it'll never get heard. And some of my very best stories, very best, far beyond what I've ever told, I haven't told because if nobody clicks, then it never gets heard. So I've saved a lot of the best for later. But anyway, it was just a little bit about the process of it. But Hawk, that was, man, this is superhuman. And when you get somebody like that, a lot of times respect comes in fitness, in prison. It's a little bit more primitive of a world. Of course, there are other, like I talked about, the DMI, the brains of it. Steve, that dude was a genius, literal genius, and criminal genius. That dude's incredible. But then there are other people come in like Hawk, tattooed finger, and they just have this presence about them. And, people just look up to him, listen to him. And he was a good guy. I can't say anything bad about him as if you were friends with him, he's going to flip on you or do you wrong or ever. He was somebody who tried to build you up. He'd get young fellas in there working out with him, and he'd build them up. He did them right. Now, of course, with the drugs and stuff like that happens, but that wasn't with any of his friends. That was with people that was wanting to buy him and stuff like that. But he got these people in his workout group, and he built up a lot of people. Got people, you'd see people changing. You'd see people go in there looking like a wad of cookie dough coming out, cut down to the bone, And he did build people up, and it's a shame because somebody with that charisma, that intelligence, that can motivate you, so much could be used, so much good could be done by him. And he's stuck in prison like that because of choices he's made before, and there's certain things like that, misguided and everything else. But he could so easily just be a presence of good to get people motivated, to get people to change and everything else. Got a lot of respect for that guy. Didn't work out that crew as much, so a lot of the stuff, I worked out right beside of them. Where I did burpees at, they were literally The burpees were on the concrete here. We'd put the mats down because it'd burn your hands. Sometimes you had to do the burpees with the plumber gloves on because when it got 100 degrees out, it was so hot it burned your hands when you went down and do them. And the bleachers were right over there. So, I mean, we were literally 20, 30 foot apart. And after you worked out, you sit, you hang out, and you talk. You talk to the dude. He's a good dude. But, you know, he has his problems. And, you know, I hope he didn't get any more time. I hope he gets out in, you know, about 8 years and he gets another chance. Even so, I have no doubt, you know, even if he's a senior citizen when he gets out, that the level of fitness that he has, if he were to take something and put it into that and start a program for people, you know, he could easily, shoot, I'd probably do it. I'd probably listen to some of the stuff he's come up with and dealt with, because there's, you know, the weight strength that you have, then there's like this body weight endurance type stuff, and this dude was an animal, you know. You put most average 2 people against him, and, you know, he's going, or, you know, more than average 2 people against him, and, you know, he didn't train no fight, nothing like that. He'd just been in fights, so, you know, it was kind of a trial and error thing, I guess, for him, but, like, and, yeah. So, got a lot of respect for the guy. Be good if I could find out his name, you know what I mean? And, write him or something like that. You know, some of the old people I knew, and I've talked to might know a little bit more about him, but if I get a picture of this dude too, the look, like if you saw this dude, you'd be like, what the, you know, like some of these people like you see in the movies for prison, like how they look like jacked with tattoos and stuff, like this dude's got him beat, like looks like the stereotype of like a prisoner that's worked out for decades at time. Good dude though. Anyway, if you liked the video, press the like button. If not, it's 26 minutes and 17 seconds of your life in which you'll never ever get back. And for that, I'm truly sorry. But I hope you did. Got more stories about him I'll tell in the future. But that was his exit. He decided he didn't want to be there anymore. And he wasn't going to, you know, go quietly. He made a ruckus. Everybody was talking about that when he ripped that toilet off. I don't know how you ripped that toilet off the wall. Okay, there are 300-400 pound people that sit on that toilet, using the toilet. It doesn't even budge it. So I don't know how this man ripped a toilet off the wall. He had to have just violently gone after it. But that's a pretty, if you've been in prison, you've seen those toilets to the wall. You know what I'm talking about. That's an incredible feat of strength, ripping that thing off the wall. And if he got that door open and he'd been running up and down that tier, that would have been something else. You know, you heard more about that. But yeah. Wasn't he punking his blood? That dude was tough. Anyway, if you like the video, press the like button.